is the most important one of the weekend, if I might say so. Not to be like the, well, I'll be that cooler Jeff guy. It's the one that gets you the all expenses paid trip to Montreal, which is the big end goal. Of course, winning Challenger in and of itself is amazing. We're just coming off of celebrating Cyril's dominant Saturday, where he was able to secure his 3rd in a row.
Supposedly now is like setting some sort of record, or on the verge of setting a record for the
35 wins in a row.
Most consecutive games won versus foreigners.
Yeah. Series, I think.
Or series, yeah.
Yeah, games is a lot more.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's not consecutive games. Lost 2 maps yesterday. He's doing very well. But that brings us to this. Neeb versus JonSnow. And as Fear Dragon would have told you had I not stole his information, this is something that happens almost every WCS. These two clash.
They have played in every single season of WCS, and it's more often than not, it ends up being Neeb that knocks JonSnow out.
Yeah.
So we'll see one more time. Can this guy down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, the Red Zerg player from Psystorm Gaming, overcome his greatest nemesis this year? It is JonSnow.
Jared George. 2 first names.
And even
Never
John is like a
trust him.
first name.
Yeah.
And spawning up here in the top left, we have our blue Protoss player from Ting. He is Ting's Neeb.
Mr. America himself. JonSnow is a nemesis. I'll tell you what. On that ladder, he just is always in the top in the North American scene for all the North American tournaments. He's always up there in the top 5. It feels like he's one of those players that unfortunately falls in that category of being absolutely good enough to qualify for everything North America, absolutely good enough to beat most of the North American scene, but the scene is always have one player enshrined as like the top player. If it's Scarlet or Neeb, and in the off chance there's been some others in the past as well, JonSnow just doesn't seem to be able to break that barrier. Him and everybody else, to be fair. It's not like it's just him. It's just that it feels like at some point it could have been him, but it just never has been.
The kind of mean name that a lot of the NA players have kind of given JonSnow is sort of like he's the gatekeeper of NA. So getting into the top, you kind of have to be able to beat JonSnow, which is not an easy feat, but he's also kind of a consistent benchmark a lot of the time, which is why he's acts as that sort of gatekeeper. He's not someone that is really volatile in terms of his level of play.
Right. It's unfortunate. It's that term is actually in all of gaming for the most part. There is the role of gatekeeping. It's it comes off as kind of mean, and it kind of defines them a little bit, but what it breaks down to is that they are one of the absolute best players, and they're very close to breaking through themselves, but it just seems that their consistency remains as a top player, but not the top player. So it's not a bad thing to be a gatekeeper, but in StarCraft, we just are so locked in and we celebrate the absolute best that it feels bad, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to note also that Neeb did get knocked out of that Masters Coliseum by Scarlet herself. So he got knocked out in a PvZ, and from what I understand, it was a 3-0, but not only that, it was also Scarlet kind of doing what Scarlet does, where she said, one game is a proxy hatch, another game is Nidus Swarm play, another game is just a lot of Swarm hosts. It's all the kind of weird, funky stuff you don't really see as typical PvZ meta. It happens, absolutely, but if JonSnow's aware of that, he may kind of sense like, okay, maybe there's some opportunities here. It's not like Neeb has really had a lot of time to be like, okay, let me go ahead and practice that stuff that I lost to, even though I just got off an airplane like an hour or 2 ago.
Well, it's not even specifically that stuff. It's more that it falls into the category of if you play off meta, you play aggressive, and you play weird. We've seen Neeb not just lose series, but absolutely melt down. If you play straight up and you can get past that early game, Neeb is one of, if not the best PvZ player in the world. And that's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but that's what I'm excited about to see for him against Rogue in the GSL. They're both in the top 8. That's huge. If Neeb wins that, he's in the top 4, which would be just a gigantic feat. But Rogue being one of the best players and Zergs in the world, that's the part that's like really cool, but doesn't necessarily worry me. It's the Koreans seem to have kind of dialed in that it's like, well, with Neeb, okay, you just throw in some cheese, really get him off his game, and then he's very beatable.
Okay, well, JonSnow has not technically seen the Stargate. He can pretty much assume it based off of the fact that Adepts were coming out earlier, and he only has one Overlord on the map, so he's not actually going to be losing too many if he plays his cards right. Adepts and the Oracle shade over to the third base. Kind of interesting. Oracle's just going to chill here.
And because there's no Spore Crawler yet, this is actually a problem. So he activates the Pulsar Beam there, and that's a little bit, you would say, trigger finger a little bit too happy there. But he could have actually got a lot of Lings out, and had a lot more Lings came over there. Would have taken a Queen or even several Queens actually to really jump on top, but well,
One of the Adepts already getting picked off. The other Adept is not going to let that Shade finish. The Zerglings have to retreat back and respect it, though. JonSnow overall takes a little bit of damage there, but it seems like, despite those Ling losses, gets away okay.
Yeah, it's just not that big of a commitment. It's just one Oracle and two, one Oracle and 2 Adepts. So it's, if it had been 4 or 6 or something and he killed only what he did right there, it's a huge win for JonSnow, but it's very minimal on both sides, so not a big deal. In fact, if JonSnow had built like 4 Spore Crawlers for the 1 Oracle, that in and of itself would have been bad, because the follow-up, as we can see behind this, is going to be that Archon drop with the Warp Prism. And this is like the default Neeb play. Like, this is not...
Okay,
nice.
Keeps it alive.
Just to do it.
Yeah. Always nice if you can keep that Oracle alive, or sorry, the Phoenix alive, because if you ever end up losing that 1 Oracle and you didn't get a second Oracle, that's always a little frustrating for scouting purposes.
It's nice to keep things alive.
Yeah, that's also true.
Everyone talks about the war in StarCraft, but nobody talks about the peace. You know what I'm saying? The war and peace.
The war and peace? Yeah. What do you do for peacekeeping purposes in StarCraft, Jim?
A lot of shield batteries.
That's fair, you know. Learn to love, not to hate.
Not good, by the way, for JonSnow. It took him like 5 seconds to kind of figure it. Not the end of the world, but he's like, I can kill these Archons maybe, but if there's an Oracle over the top of your head, Lings aren't killing much, my man.
Yeah, he loses a lot of the Lings, but he does soften up these Archons, so they can't stick around for too much longer. They're going to have to retreat back and regen some of the shields.
This will not make it to the YouTube highlights of Neeb.
Oh boy. Phoenix is going to go down. The Archons are going to be able to get out of there alive, and the Warp Prism hasn't taken damage past the shields. But JonSnow, I feel like JonSnow has given himself a lot of room to work with now.
Has he given himself a lot of room to work with?
Well, the Archons are so low on hit points that as soon as these Queens get even somewhat close, you can just kind of drone up and not really worry too much about this, right? You don't have to make a bunch more.
You always got to worry. The Warp Prism, so what we don't see right now, and you're not giving credit to, the Overlord died a while ago, so he does not necessarily know that there's not 19 gateways in that main base. And that's the thing that Protoss use to wield against their opponents, is like, hey, man, if you don't know, at any time, 17 charge lots can just show up with those 2 Archons, and that's a big problem. But we know that's not the case. We know that their worker count is very similar, and that right now it's a macro Neeb behind this. And keep in mind, that's one of the things that makes Neeb really good at this matchup, is that he will do that. He'll go, oh, no, my game plan the entire time was to play a 25-minute Mothership Tempest, like a real late game play, but then he'll also cut probes hard and just go for a big all-in, and that's part of what makes him so good.
All right, Archon's actually finding a little bit more damage there. 2 more drones picked off, but also scouting out that 4th base.
This is good.
Ooh.
Like fight creep tumors, keeps him active. Just anytime you got a Zerg, worried about laying creep, building units, and again, just in fear of gateways, you're doing really good for yourself.
Yeah, doing a really nice job with that. Okay, Oracle also still alive, so going to be useful for continuing to get any revelations down that he wants, but he's going straight up to that storm, warped in a couple of those High Templars, and he's doing a good job just keeping JonSnow pushed back.
Yes. Okay, good. I was like, all right, the army seems really unimpressive. Where's the Immortals? There they are. So now we've got some Archons. Storm already almost finished. That is that army. The only slight concern I would have, you notice the 4th is not saturated for JonSnow, so that's why I say slight. But you want to be starting your 4th base as a Protoss for a while here as well. It does look like the reason why that 4th is not saturated is a pretty big army coming across the map. But it's only a 30 army supply, and we'll be facing Immortal, Storm, Archons, Zealots. It's all the fixings, so unfortunately for JonSnow, Neeb did not take an aggressive 4th. It's a passive one, and that's because this army is so beefy.
And Storm is about to finish, about 10-15 seconds away. As soon as Storm is done, JonSnow has to get the heck out of here, and if he ends up overcommitting, this could end up backfiring. He does decide to back off and is going to be able to intercept some of these Zealots on the kind of counter-harassment strategy.
Like this from Neeb, they'll pull him back. Maybe he loses a bunch, but just throwing him there would be a flat-out throw. At the very least, right now, he's getting the Zerg army to just go to the right side of the map where there is absolutely no real estate of any import. And now the Warp Prism is going to make its way to the main, and this is great. This is the guillotine hanging over the head of the Zerg. It's like, hey, you want to push out and fight me? That's fine. There'll be about 20 Zealots in your main base doing some stuff.
Yeah, Spore Crawler is going to be the first target to go down before the Zealots, so the Warp Prism can move a little bit more freely. Does end up falling. The Zealots are going to be able to get out of there alive. And it looks like on the other side of the map, JonSnow has a lot of units positioned over on the left-hand side. Drop Overlords also prepare to go into the main base. Roaches try to distract the army for Neeb, pull him out of position.
The problem with this, and we'll see how it gets handled, when you only do a move like that by itself, you can always recall. There will always be a recall, so you'll get that recall. And maybe that gets some of the Archons stuck. We did see that Immortals can fit through, so maybe the Archons don't get stuck. But
Yeah.
When you do a single action like this as a Zerg against Protoss, I really don't like it. If there's like a lurker siege on the right side of the map and just pushing.
Oh, High Templar's way out of position right now. He's busy trying to deal with the drop overlords. He's going to lose almost every single one of those High Templars. There's the recall. The High Templar does not get recalled, but the units have already been dropped out.
Yep. So that's what you're hoping for, but that's a gift, right? You don't count on Neeb making mistakes.
No,
like
that was a massive mistake from Neeb. Kind of forced out by JonSnow, hitting him from multiple different angles. And now these units are making a lot more progress than you'd expect. The Immortals and the Zealots should be enough to clean this up. And the drop overlords escape out of there with a handful of the units alive.
Yep. And then the problem I find with that too is we're on 4-base economy now, so Neeb's gonna make some cannons there or leave some army or whatever, but that's like a one-trick pony kind of thing. There's not a lot else to go to do more drops. And the tech right now, as I can see it for JonSnow, and sometimes I miss some stuff, but right now it looks like it is going to be lurkers. But otherwise, that's it. He's going towards high for the better lurkers, essentially, and some Vipers. So hopefully he can get some good positioning, because that in and of itself, it's going to win some defensive play out of Neeb, and that's nice, but it's not... It's nice, but it's not like the best, I guess.
Okay, well, getting a cancel on this base is nice, like you said.
It's nice.
It's one of those...
Say it.
It is nice.
Thank you.
I already said it.
Bullying him.
Oh my god.
I told him what to say, he did it.
Not a fight that JonSnow probably wants to take. He eats another storm there as well, so he's going to have to get out of there. But at the same time, he does manage to unload a bunch of those units from the Overlords earlier on behind the mineral line. Lurkers are also burrowed, but they're not really protected.
And this is like true not protected, not yesterday where we're like, they're not protected and they just die.
But the Immortals are, okay, well, if these units I thought were going to be able to move in from behind, it might have been able to snag the Immortals, but still a weird trade here. I think that Neeb still gets the better end of it, even with the worker losses.
You know what? Mathematically speaking, yes. That's all I got. You go ahead.
Okay.
I just want to say mathematical.
Well, the big thing here for Neeb is that not only does he keep the Immortals alive, but he also has triple Stargates. Fleet Beacon finished up. The carriers are starting up. I think he's trying to force a recall into the main base with fake out drop overlords.
The drop overlords!
Yeah, it's just a recall. I mean, JonSnow doesn't Neeb doesn't technically know that there's nothing in them, so not bad.
Neeb doesn't need to. He's on 4 bases against a 4-ish base Zerg, just taking his 5th.
He scouted this. No, he hasn't seen the Fleet Beacon. He may have noticed the carrier being produced.
Would you say that JonSnow knows nothing here?
I think he knows a little. That he knows that he probably has to do something soon, because if he doesn't, it's going to start getting a little bit dicey for him.
Do you know what that's from?
Game of Thrones.
JonSnow knows nothing?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Did you watch the show or read the book? You know before you answer that?
You know what?
You're a filthy show watcher, aren't you?
Well, here's the thing. Game of Thrones is so stressful for me to watch that I only watch the first and last episode of every season.
Are you being serious?
I'm not joking.
The first and last episode?
You know, I used to watch every single episode, but it's just so stressful.
Read the books, man. They're so good. The first.
I read the first 2 books, I think.
And you liked them?
Yeah, they were good.
Yeah, they were good.
Much less stressful than the show.
Well, yeah, you can put the book down and just be like, man, that's a big one. And
I can just decide not to imagine someone losing their arm.
That's right. Instead, they just dinged it. It's a funny bone.
Exactly. It's like
so it's going to be that late game army play.
JonSnow, a little misrally there.
He went like into Ravagers a lot, by the way, which is it's like a North American read. You're like, oh my God, carriers, Ravagers.
I think it's just like an emergency situation. I don't actually have an answer for carriers. Okay, well that's not gonna be the army. You want to fight like that?
You got a song for that, Ravi?
Oh, it's a very common tale in the North American scene. Okay, a couple corrosive biles are getting dodged out. The carriers are pretty much going to go uncontested. Even though the interceptors are starting to get taken out, the Hydras all end up falling. And JonSnow taps out the G. GG.
Triple G. Good game. Had some nice moments there, and this would be the little slip in the play from Neeb that honestly you'd expect from a guy that just took a flight from China back to Korea to play on Korea to North America for the WCS. But at the end of the day, Neeb's game plan was really solid, and it was JonSnow that was having a tough time kind of getting around that. Drop play was nice, and I was all worried about him not doing multiple moves with the drop play, but he did. He actually pushed forward there. The unfortunate part was I think he had that big lurker push that actually could have done really well, but as you pointed out, Ravi, they had 0 support. There was like that weird army flank over here, and there's a little bit of a drop over here, so they were in multiple locations, and you'll go back to yesterday, we're on Europe against Mana in particular, where we're like, he's got the lurkers out in the open, and that was nice, but because there's no buildings, there's no warp-ins, that in that situation, the lurkers were awesome. But in this situation, there is warp-ins. The buildings were working against JonSnow, and critically, Neeb had Storm, which is something that Mana he had, but he ended up storming the non-lurkers in that last. Anyways, I keep drawing comparisons from games you guys might not have watched.
I mean, even in that comparison, in that situation you were talking about, there were like 10 or 11 lurkers that hold their own versus Immortals. In that situation, it's 4 lurkers that you really do need that backup support.
Sure. So unfortunately, that was the time where JonSnow could have maybe gotten some done. Didn't happen, but not bad from JonSnow as well, right? He didn't get absolutely bopped. He got up to 4, going on 5 bases. He had a couple moments where Neeb was looking a little bit shaky. But Neeb did Neeb things. Got it back.
Yeah, and Neeb, honestly, most of that was just kind of getting up to that really late Protoss late game that I think a lot of Zerg players struggle with. And JonSnow, like you said before, his tech wasn't going super duper fast. He wasn't like, oh, let me get up to Broodlords really quickly or something, or try and match that sort of pacing of Neeb. He was committed to trying to get that damage done earlier. So there's still an opportunity that if he wants to try and play it out a little bit differently, he can in some of these follow-up games. But I wouldn't be surprised if that is sort of just JonSnow's plan, to just say, I'm just going to try and kill you before you get there.
Well, there's our golden boy in the golden light, and that's his nemesis, Mr. JonSnow, a handsome devil himself, with a little bit of golden light. If you can see that on his chiseled chin.
Yeah, it's coming, the light's coming from the same side.
What's that? Yeah, it is. Well, that's how light works, Ravi, if you'd imagine. Usually it comes from one direction and shines on people the same way.
You'd think so, but it doesn't always seem to pan out that way.
Does it not?
No.
Do you find yourself in the dark a lot?
Dark Templar?
Get it?
Oh, no.
That was not what I was.
No, that was not at all. Wow, why are we on this map? Spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map of Redshift, we have our red Zerg player. It is JonSnow, Psystorm Gaming.
Think of how important the F is in the name of this map. You know what I'm saying?
Redshift.
Changes things quite a bit.
All right.
If you take it out.
Well, spawn down here in the bottom left, we have our blue Protoss player from Ting. Sitting up 1-0, it is Neeb.
I do have to apologize for that joke. That's inappropriate. It unnecessarily singles out people that cannot spell or read. I don't like to do that. This is a broadcast where you can use your eyes, you can use your ears, but you don't have to read. And I think that's unnecessary tension to apply to the people that attended North American education system.
I see. I actually have no idea what you're talking about anymore. But
JonSnow,
I learned yesterday that you can mine from both sides of these gold minerals.
Isn't that amazing?
That is pretty amazing.
You know what? People were laughing and having some good clips about yesterday. How in the hell did they not clip that moment where you genuinely were laughing and did not understand that you could mine on the other side of the gold base?
Well, no, it's just that the idea of taking the base from the other side I think is really cool.
Ravi, come on, man.
I
guess there's not many maps where you can do that. Here's why it's funny to me. There was some pretty big maps in Brood War where that's absolutely what you did. So to me, it's been like a 20-year long, this is what we do. But you're right, in StarCraft 2, now that I think about it, there's only been a couple maps that you would ever even consider doing that. And most of those are like 2 versus 2 or 3 versus 3 maps, and they're really weird. Anyways, this is what I wanted from JonSnow, though. That's a weird base. So in ZVZ, we saw someone take this so they could deny the other player of taking the gold. That made a lot of sense. Now, it makes a heck of a lot less sense. But to me, to do that against Neeb makes more sense, Ravi. And guess what? It cancels out to just making sense at that point.
Okay, well, I don't quite follow the logic there, but you know, we'll go with it. It
makes less sense, which makes more sense against Neeb. And if it makes less in normal situations but more against Neeb, then that just makes sense.
It's just so unexpected that it's not
sensible.
Expected.
Yes.
Okay.
Look at mine on the other side. Ravi.
Well, Adept is going to make its way over there. And the funny thing is, yeah, he's already spotted this out, it looks like, with the probe. So he's going to move forward with the Adept, try and see what damage he can get done. There's 2 Zerglings over here. Remember, there's not exactly going to be Queen backup or anything. So it really is just that one Queen and a couple Lings.
No, I think this is absolutely garbage what JonSnow's doing. That is the best chance you have against Neeb, is do such a garbage play that his, like... Because you have to remember, Neeb's still patched for, like, Korean meta play right now. And if you go full NA against him, it could be one of those situations where he just does not know what to... You know, he's like, what is happening right now?
It is going to be Robo Twilight, by the way, not the Stargate opening.
Dark Shrine. Do the Dark Shrine.
You think Dark... Like,
do the Dark Shrine, baby!
Archon
come
Dark Shrine?
Come on. Yeah, of course. Well, you can always... There it is. Oh, my God!
Wow.
Ugh. That must be what it feels like to be Rotterdam and know everything.
Adept is going to be here, but he's going to have a little bit of trouble dealing with this many Lings. Stalker almost gets around. It's going to get taken out. The Adept is going to survive, but a couple of probes are going to end up falling here.
Neeb?
Oh, gets the wall off, though. He's going to...
Cut the wall off!
Well, you don't know how many more Lings.
This is like 30 zombies clambered in through a window, and somebody, like, pulls himself over there and is like, I closed the window! That was so weird. That was such a latency situation. The stalker's like, let me get out of the way, and then dance until I die.
That was not exactly the most amount of damage that sucker could have done.
Now, no gases to be mined here.
Yep.
Is this? Well, hang on. Let me explain it, Rob. You might not know this.
Okay.
You can't mine the gases from here.
What if you mine out one of the mineral patches?
Superficially.
You can still mine. You can still mine it.
Could.
Just take like 8 workers.
You're right. You could do that. I want a late game redshift map where they mine this way, they mine out that whole gold, and then he builds a hatch to mine the 2 gases by itself. That would be super Brood War. We had bases like that. Did you know that?
You actually
only gas.
Oh yeah, I think I remember.
Oh, it was a huge deal. Because gas you mine super fast. Because remember, every base had just about 1.
Oh, did JonSnow get any spore crawlers?
Did he get some spore crawler? Look at the gold base.
He did get up a layer.
Look at the gold base. There's a spore crawler. He's got one.
This is America, Jeff. This isn't WCS.
This is America. Sorry. I'm having a really good time. I had my fun juice this morning, by the way.
I know. I saw. It was in the fridge. I was waiting for you. But the DT is going to be pretty problematic because even with the detection, it turns out they can still kill queens pretty quickly.
They can. He should send one. Okay, he caught onto it. He sent the DTs back to go do some damage. Because for a while there, he was just chasing queens, which was actually good for JonSnow.
Yep.
Obviously, he lost 2 of them, which is not good, but it's in this situation.
Didn't quite pick up the DT in time. He's going to pick up one of them, and the Zealots are going to get warped in now, and Archon's finally made, but 9 workers have already gone down.
Yeah, he's super dead. Like I said, this is a terrible idea, but it's only, he's down 0-1, and it's a good thing to try. Which is going to be weird logic for a lot of people. They're going to be like, Jeff, you say it's terrible, but that's how good Neeb is. Like, it's not like this is JonSnow and Neeb are on equal levels. Neeb is a world-class Protoss. He's in the round of 8 GSL right now. JonSnow is a college student that, you know, tries real hard, and that's great. But against someone of Neeb's level, you got to go weird. And this did not work out this time.
Yeah, JonSnow gonna stick around for a little bit. He's not down that much supply, but like you said, he is in a really, really tough spot. That is
situational supply.
Exactly.
he's down about 100 situational supply.
It seems pretty much unrecoverable at this point.
It is. If JonSnow could throw down a Dark Shrine right now, that would be his best shot. That'd be so sick.
You know, Parasite a probe?
Yeah. Just to get a Dark Shrine.
Wouldn't it be cool if when you nail Parasite or a probe, you just had access to their level of tech with that probe?
Yes. I would welcome all kinds of stuff like that. Nobody Nero Parasites probes. This is also weird because they're on a tether, so you can only build right there.
Okay, I'm gonna build my Nexus here. Please don't do anything about it.
You see me building it. I hope it's a surprise later, and they're like, oh.
All right, John.
You should get access to their money too. So you just start spamming Nexuses and stuff.
I mean, that's the
like,
true spy, right? No, you can just start building in their base.
Yeah.
And it just looks like they're building. They act like changeling buildings.
Well, you're taking it even further. I just like the idea of getting access to their bank and tech, like you said.
Well, where would you build it but their base if you had access to their
I mean, maybe it's a probe going across the map, or you're killing a base and you grab a probe.
Third base coming down here.
You also have to build a pylon first, which takes forever, because then
that's
you have to keep neuroparasiting the probe or something.
Well, it's better than trying to neuroparasite an SCV and be like, okay, just you didn't see anything about this command center being built in the middle of the map.
Will it finish it though?
No, it will just continue to cancel the neuroparasite when it expires, and then you have to neuroparasite it again, and then tell it to go build it again.
I don't like that.
And every time you do that, every time you lose a vision, the opponent sees it, gets control of that SCV and sees the building.
What is he doing over there, I wonder? That's a shame. It was the ultimate slap, because right now all we have is nukes. Like, we get nukes, but even that, like, nukes are pretty... In StarCraft 2, they're not the same as they were in Brood War. Brood War is like a slap in the face. In StarCraft 2, it's like, oh, it's a pretty good choice. Pretty tactical.
That's an okay choice.
But if you took over someone's stuff and then showed up with your own siege tanks as a Zerg player, back in the days of Protoss, that was, you were like, oh.
Well, the cool thing in Brood War was that it was kind of a separate supply, right? So you could have a maxed out army for different things. There it is. Neeb takes 2-0.
My favorite part about this whole thing, too, let's get meta about this. There's one guy in the chat, he's going to post a team like, these commentators did not follow the action the whole time. And that, just so you know, this is like extra time in a soccer match, because you're probably European, where the team's up 7-0 with like 45 seconds left, and they're like, would the commentators talk about this? And they do, though, is the funny part. They're like, shot on the goal. Can't believe he tried it. No. Anyways.
Well, valiant effort there from JonSnow to try and do something weird. Didn't pan out. He had the first game that he actually played very, very standard. Game number 3. Do you want to see something weird again, just like in a different vein?
Less weird.
So
more meta weird. I would like to see Nidus Swarm Host or something along those lines.
Yep.
The unfortunate thing is I don't know very much about what JonSnow practices, and he's also not a very cheesy player by nature anyways, so with a Scarlet, you can count on some really weird stuff, and she's going to be well practiced in it. She's going to know what to do, and then she's obviously just such a talented player. She can do it.
Yep.
With JonSnow, his thing is just on the North American ladder, he just beats the snot out of people with just more Hydras and more Lurkers and just being better than them. And that's why, not that we need to have a whole discussion about this, but where you practice really matters. Scarlet's in Korea, competing in China, doing well. Neeb in Korea, competing in China, etc., doing well. Then you have these North American guys that are college students. They have part-time jobs. They don't get the luxury of going abroad and training against the best in the world, so it's harder for them, really hard.
Yeah, definitely tough in terms of the time constraint. I know JonSnow likes to practice a lot on the European ladder, but at the same time, it's not quite the same. He's not necessarily getting to practice.
Better, though.
It's better, but it's also not getting to practice during like the peak times because, of course, JonSnow will have school. He has to go to his classes, and then he comes home, and then it's evening time. It's 4 a.m. or something in the middle of Europe. It's not ideal.
It's hard.
Yeah.
So good for him, and that's why the WCS system is really nice. It's giving them something to train for and to make that choice if they want to, but JonSnow's going to be a college student.
Getting close to graduating, so this is yeah. I think he's.
You know what he's doing? What is he studying?
Computer science.
God dang it! Is every
so
single StarCraft nerd a computer science?
No,
guy?
there's Semper. He's a law student.
Thank you. You're right. He's later today. I was an English major, you guys. I fully gave up on college even before I started. What would you go for? You computer science?
Yeah.
You know what?
There are a lot of computer scientists in StarCraft.
A lot. Makes sense though.
All right, well, we're going to start up here, the top left-hand corner of the map, top of the red Zerg player from Storm Gaming, about to face elimination. It is JonSnow.
Madalisk, PhD in mathematics.
Wow, that's intense.
Idra's getting his, I believe, I think it's a PhD as well in biochemistry or something like that. Or no, it's like theoretical. I don't know. He's out there too.
Theoretical physics, I think.
Yeah,
I think I talked to him. Yeah. All right, let's find down here in the bottom right. Not going for any degrees right now, just focused on StarCraft. Is Ting's Neeb. He's a degree in killing Zergs.
Yeah. Well, hey, he's closing in on $500,000 in prize earnings alone, so
that's not bad.
He's doing okay for himself.
You know, for someone who's, I think, still under the age of 20.
It's cool to go to college later anyways. Neeb's going to be like this really successful guy. He's going to be 25 years old, go back to college, and people will be like, what did you do?
They're going to be like,
I traveled the world competing in StarCraft, and I'm a millionaire.
They're going to be like, oh, those college loans. And I was like, yeah, about that.
So I got scholarships because I'm also really smart and talented.
He's going to have a scholarship on top of the $500,000 he's won. And by the way, again, like this is something I always love about Neeb. He is so good with actually saving that money. A lot of there's always those players that you're like, okay, you win the prize money. What are you going to do with it? Oh, I'm going to have some fun with it. And it's like, oh, okay.
Not StarCraft, my man. I know what you're saying, and that is true. There's like the legendary story of some people that won a tournament called the International, and they like disappeared in the Siberian wastelands and just kind of supposedly partied it away. But not in StarCraft. Nope. Unfortunately, I would say it tilts to the too boring side, though. I would love it if there was a StarCraft player that's like, you know what? Actually, the closest we had was like Stefano. He invested into like real estate. That's really cool. That's
Bly has, I think, like with the prize. This is actually the coolest story to me. Oh, nice kill on that probe. But Bly, with the money he's won from mostly online tournaments, honestly.
Yeah, sure.
I think he's like purchased, like he's invested in real estate as well, and has like multiple homes that he just has invested.
Loans out and stuff. That's awesome.
That's super. It's super cool.
Most of the StarCraft nerd stories are just like, it's in a bank. What do you want to do with it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you saving up? Okay. Are you safe?
You might say that they're all very economic, macro-focused players.
I live at home. I've worn my same clothes since I was 12, and I've just got $150,000 in the bank. Cool.
I mean, it's a smart way to play.
Then the world's economy shuts down, and all these nerds are like, dang it. Not me, man. I've invested into models. So if the world economy shuts down, I can trade you a Warlord Titan for like your house. Would that be great if the economy did shift to just things like that? You know, it's bottle caps and Fallout. But in actuality, it ends up being Warhammer models.
But do you think that the Warhammer models, in a situation where the economy shuts down, would be as valuable?
Probably not. I'm guessing not. In the current economy, they're not as valuable. But don't tell my wife that.
Gotta justify those costs somehow. Well, we do have Stargate opening coming out from Neeb. The Oracle about to pop out. We already have Spore Callers coming down from JonSnow, who I think just got the pretty typical basic scouting information. There is a Stalker out after the Adept, so you can poke away at any Overlords that get a little too friendly.
Does get the Adept. Nice. Yep. Not that big of a deal, but it spots the Oracle as it leaves the base, which is the best. Of course, the Overlord always would have done that, but anyways, this is the, you know, back in HOTS, we had a TvZ, like, absolutely formulaic opening. They went Reaper, you went into Hellions, you know, and you tried to get your third base going. There's a fight for creep. Happened every game. This is PvZ right now, mostly.
Yep.
There is some variance, there's some change, but for the most part, the meta is the Oracle shows up, gets maybe 2 kills, or even none, and that's fine. And then it's what's happening behind that that's interesting, and this time it's going to be that default again. And for Neeb, who quite easily won the first 2 games, I don't mind him being completely vanilla and default like this at all.
I think this is kind of his strong suit. Neeb occasionally will mix it up, but that's not where we end up finding Neeb look really scary. It's when
Ling, though.
Ling does make his way into the main base. I mean, it's going to scout out and say, okay, you're doing normal stuff. Cool. That's just a little bit of feels nice.
But you just panned away.
I did?
Another gateway. See, now this is what I'm talking about.
6 gateways?
All you guys watching Protoss games are like, this is standard stuff, but Jeff's like, no! It can change, it can evolve. Maybe not, though. It's just 5 gateways, right?
6 gateways, I think.
Oh, yeah, because there's 2.
Yeah, there's 2 at the natural for the wall. Has a Warp Prism on the way with the Templar Archives, and with Charge on the way, this can get to be really scary. Now, JonSnow did move into the main base before all those gateways came down, though. Oracle's going to be able to get a little bit of damage done.
I see a lot of people are complaining about your observing yesterday. I like it. Because you never quite know what's going on. There's so many different battles.
You know, I should just remove the production tab to like, really, really trigger people.
Yes. You're like the J.J. Abrams of StarCraft observing, though. Because, like, this battle's really intense. But we think that behind this, he lost 40 supply and workers because of a counterattack.
Well, you know, I like to focus on the explosions.
Yeah.
This explosion, by the way, the Stalker going down, and there's the 2 Oracles here. They do have enough energy. They should be able to take care of those. Forcing those Oracles back is a little bit nice. Gives himself some breathing space to start making those roaches, but he's still droning up right now. He just doesn't seem to have an idea of what's going to be on the way.
Yeah, it's this close Zealots. And there is literally 4 roaches on the production tab.
And this is the fun part where the Warp Prism turns into Warpin mode, and then the Zealots start coming out.
It's low in health, though. A lot of queens here.
There are a lot of... He needs to at least move to the other side of the cliff.
Get on the other side of that cliff. There you go. Now he can warp in Zealots. But I don't think he will. He's got a 3rd behind it. There's Zealots somewhere else being warped in. I guess back at home. Again, for Neeb, we're looking at this, we're like, maybe it's aggressive, but you can do those gateways. 6 is non-committal. It's not like, if you go 8, you have to get something done with that. 6 is, it's okay. So he's just going to use it as, again, that default play. Look at the supply, by the way. He's up in army by a lot. He's only behind in workers by a pretty normal amount, I would say.
Oh, boy. Okay. This is where the big warping is.
Jeez.
JonSnow sees those 6 Zealots warping into the main base. He's transferring a bunch of his drones over because there's a lot of these Zealots still over on the right-hand side. Those are the ones he warped in over by the 3rd base. Zealots going ham on side that mineral line, and JonSnow just does not have the army he needs to handle this.
He does not. And his queen's taking a lot of damage to that ramp. Here comes the drones, whether they like it or not. Like, we're going back to work.
Yeah, queens and roaches.
Oh my God! Focus on. Oh, he didn't do it. That was so cool.
Okay, well, these Zealots will get cleaned up at the same time. The 3rd base has been completely slaughtered, and that is just going to go focus fire down. He's no units going there either.
Nope. I think JonSnow is, I mean, he's down 0-2, so he'll fight it out, but this is that situation where you say, like, lol nerd if you're laddering and just leave the game. No GG at all. This Protoss just warped in units in 2 different locations in 1. Basically, it feels like a Silverback Gorilla could do that, and that's not something to be honored by Zerg players. So.
Are they not very smart?
Silverback Gorillas?
Yeah.
You better hope one doesn't hear you say that. They have very dense muscle fibers. But no, they're not very smart at all. They're pretty stupid.
Okay. I just want to understand the reference. Stasis Trap catches a bunch of these roaches, and it really does seem like JonSnow's even hope at a counterattack is going to be absolutely just slaughtered.
You know, they say some animals are like as smart as a child, and they try to say that like it's impressive, but I've seen full-grown adult humans do really, really stupid things. So.
Oh, I mean, human children are actually some of the funniest people to just watch these absolutely stupid stuff. Have you seen, there's a subreddit called Children Falling Over?
Oh, I'm going to now.
It's
I promise you this.
It actually will be one of your favorite subreddits. Knowing you.
Unfortunately, I would be a moderator of that because I think I create a lot of that content. But no, I'm just kidding. Anyways, 30 some odd supply is now shrinking down for Neeb, but that's fine. If a Protoss is up in supply, The Zerg better have a very good story, and unfortunately for JonSnow, there is not one. He's just rebuilding his third, while the Protoss has a solid third.
And the problem is also there's not really a whole lot of other special tech coming out for JonSnow. It's not like, oh, he's going for these like Hail Mary lurkers or something.
No, he's making roaches.
It's just roaches and trying to retake a third. And
this is why people can leave, by the way, because that's not a comeback material. Like, Neeb would have to move command and get really weird out on creep and lose his whole army like 3 times or twice at least to lose this.
It's pretty bad.
And that's a tall ask for Neeb. It's like, Neeb, I need you to do something that like Jeff would do, maybe. But even me, I can A move, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of Templar, a lot of Immortals, and he is adding a 4th base as Neeb. So the third finishes for JonSnow, and he'll be behind a base. And the impossible situation here is he has to somehow add drones and units. And if you have a tech like Lurkers or Mutas for counterattacks, something crazy where the Protoss has to overcompensate for it and build their own stack defenses, that's how you can come back. But with Roaches, it's just mano-y-mano. We're just fighting. And I already got the fighting units for this.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you're really trying to go for the Hail Mary with Roaches, I almost would like something like burrowed Roaches.
Oh, the Queens!
I mean, there are a lot of Storms here. Even just feedbacks on the Queens, just take him out of the fight entirely. Storms blanket the army. JonSnow did better than I thought he would, but it's still not anywhere close to being enough. GG.
Just the 2Gs this time.
And Neeb takes another 3-0 versus JonSnow.
Yeah, and looks good. Which again is what you would be worried about. He is playing from Korea against a very good player in JonSnow. Our condolences to him. It was unfortunately, he would say it himself, this is not his best showing. But it's also, it's deflating to get someone like Neeb in that first round over and over and over again, where it's not like Neeb is in and around the top of the American scene. He is the top of the American scene. He's phenomenal. So tough draw, not quite at the Serral level of tough draw, but still very tough. And Neeb's going to move on, which is honestly what we were hoping to see.
Yep, that's what I think a lot of people were expecting. We are going to get to see Neeb face off versus Masa in that semifinals match, which should be a lot of fun. That's going to be a rematch from that Season 1 finals.
Yeah, and that was a great series too. Masa made it really close, really exciting, really funny.
And Masa showing some pretty cool TVP today. He's looking to be in pretty good form, so I think that should be a pretty fun match. But before that, we got to play out the rest of our quarterfinals matches. True versus Ant